welcome to another Versus video. I am BBD, joined by...
CVM.
Yep, and we are going to battle some sweet standard. I'm playing the Orzhov control deck that won the last Grand Prix, and
And I'm on the Boros burn deck that top 8'd the same Grand Prix.
indeed, so we will battle them together and see who arises victorious. But first, we have two options here. We can either cast a Child of Alara, or
play the basic land game.
cast a Fusion Elemental. Or we can play the basic land game. So
That's three options.
I can't count.
You lied.
That's why I always lose the 60%er. All right,
So are you going to go random, or are you going to pick one?
I'm going to pick one. I ain't scared. I'm actually going to pick this one right here. I think it's a Stone Cold Stumper. So since I won the last one, he has to guess.
All right, so now I have to decide which land BBD is going to pick. Now, between the two of us, we are only playing 3 different colors. So I have to figure out if he would pick one of the 3 colors that we're playing or one of the other 2 colors that we're not playing. And I'm going to start with plains.
All right. Would you like to play or draw?
Did I just one-shot you? Oh, man, that feels real good. I'm going to go first.
Lucky.
Okay. I think that this hand is actually pretty good. So we do have some action here. We have some protection, some filtering here, and I'm actually gonna keep this hand.
All right. I know people in the video last week were talking. There's a lot of discussion about whether or not to keep one-landers, and the kind of consensus was that you never keep them. So I'm gonna keep this one.
Fair.
Yeah.
Now, normally I would like to hold on to these until later in the game when we know what we want to draw. But based off of that we have this and this, we already know what we want to draw now, and we also want to be able to cast this on turn 2. So I'm going to play my Scry land first.
Okay.
And we'll Scry. And I think that this card is still fairly good. So we might just want to keep it, although we do already have one. And I really want to get to a land to cast this and get this online. So I actually think that I'm going to ship this to the bottom. It's your turn.
All right. So we have 2 options here. We have these 2, and I think you pretty much always want to lead with this one before this one, just because there's a chance you miss with this card, but there's very low chance you miss with this one. So I think it's better to lead with this and make sure you don't miss, to make sure you know whether or not you can even play this card and get something out of it. So we're going to Thoughtseize. Also, his spells he can cast whenever, but his creatures he has to cast, on a certain time frame. All right, so we see a number of, let's see. See Young Pyromancer, Helix, Sacred, Chained, Jet, and Phoenix. So he has infinite removal. We don't really get anything by taking any of his removal spells. So we're basically in the position where we're going to want to take a threat here. Of those options, Chandra's Phoenix he just gets back if he Magma Jets this next turn. So we definitely want to take the Young Pyromancer and prevent him from doing anything with that. And Chandra's Phoenix is going to be a pain in this game, but we're going to have to try to deal with that the old school way, just kill it 40 times. So you're up.
All right, well, sometimes we just get lucky, and we draw a Pyromancer off the top.
All right, well, that's not good for us. So, yep. That's bad news. Oh, hello. And sometimes you draw an ultimate price off the top. So, you're up. Young Pyromancer forced to pay the ultimate price. And we're at 16.
Go ahead.
All right, so we know the 3 cards in his hands. That's not a land. So we could kill the Pyromancer, but he's just going to get it back.
You mean the Phoenix?
Yeah, the Chandra's Phoenix, yeah. I mean, they're all the same. All those red creatures just look the same to me. So,
God, so racist.
I'd rather just duress here and get that magma jet, which is gonna like help set up his draws a lot, which is kind of problematic. So yeah, we want to get that out of there. I'm not too worried about either of the other cards. Chain to the Rocks does not deal damage to us, so yeah. Even though it deals with like demon and stuff, our eventual goal is we want to get to this. So we'll pass.
I'll attack.
14.
Go.
Lucky. All right, draw. It's not bad. All right, so I think we just go ahead and jam our pack rat here and say go.
Okay. So I can hold on to this War Leader's Helix, but he knows that I have it, and I want to be able to just like continually cast the spells that I draw off the top of my deck. And I don't think it's ever going to kill anything relevant that's actually in his deck, so I'm just going to cash it in now. So I will Helix you end step.
All right, you're at 22. I'm at 10.
And that will give me a little buffer against the pack rat here if I decide to not use a Chain to the Rocks on it. Alright, so that was actually a pretty good draw.
Another Phoenix?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Attack for 4.
Yep.
And then I'll pass.
Alright, well... Shucks. Yeah, him hitting another Phoenix there is pretty unfortunate for us, since our plan was to just kill them and hope he didn't have like more burn spells, but now that's going to be pretty tough, so we're just going to get him for 1.
21.
And we know he has a Chain to the Rocks, so this isn't going to be that important for us. So we're just going to pass the turn.
Well, that was a good one.
Yep.
Combat.
Sure. I'll make you sack a creature.
I will choose this Chandra's Phoenix.
All right.
23, and you go to 2.
Yep.
Go.
And yep, we're dead. All right, we are back for game number 2. Hopefully this one goes a little bit better for us. We kept a one-lander last time, but it actually wasn't that bad. And I think if he didn't draw a couple more Chandra's Phoenixes, we actually had a good shot of winning. So here, kind of we have the opposite problem, but we have 2 of these. And I think because of that, and because of these and this, that we can actually keep this hand. And like having these is almost like having 2 spells. So I think this hand's okay.
So this hand isn't too terribly exciting, but as we saw from last game, this card is actually very good against him. And these cards do allow us to have some interaction if needed. I think this card is probably a little bit of a blank, but at the very least, it's going to be 4 damage. So I'm going to keep this one too.
All right, we're going to start off by scrying, and that is going straight to the bottom. You're up.
And I will do the same.
Okay.
And this goes right to the bottom. Go ahead.
All right, and we draw. That's a pretty good draw. Just having access to that card is pretty good in this matchup, I think. So we are going to scry again, though. And... I actually think we want to keep this. We just want to have as much interaction as possible. Like, he's going to kill every threat we play, but we just have to draw enough threats to eventually win. So we'll keep it. You're up.
Okay, so I can play this now and scry, but I think that I would rather just play one of these and be able to use this here on his end step. I think that's going to be better. Will help us filter our draws. We already have enough lands at this point, so I would much rather wait what he does so that we know, what exactly we're looking for. So I'll play Mountain and pass.
Okay. All right. Well, we're just going to play an Underworld Connections on this plains and pass the turn.
End step, I'm going to jet you.
All right. We're at 18.
And we get to scry 2 cards. So I think that we want to keep the top one and ship the bottom one to the bottom. And we're going to get in with this Chandra's Phoenix.
16.
And then pass the turn.
Alright, draw. Yeah, it's kind of a bad one. We really don't want to see any more of those. So we can play this now, but I'd actually rather wait till next turn to do it. That way, we get to protect it against a removal spell and force him to use 2 on it. I think that's better in this matchup. So what I'm going to actually do is scry first, and we do want this card. I think this card's very good against him. So we will leave that on top, and I'm going to just pass the turn.
Okay. So I think we're going to start off with a scry. And I think that this card is going to end up being pretty good. So he's at 16. It's quite possible that I should have attacked first just to see what he does. I actually think that I just want to try and draw into more burn. So I'm actually going to put this on the bottom, I think. Can that be right? Yeah, I'm going to bottom this. Could possibly be wrong. I'd like to hear what people think. Combat.
Okay. Sacrifice creature. It's important to wait to combat to use Devour Flesh so you can't like use a burn spell, get it back, recast it, and attack us with it again. So.
And I'll pass the turn.
Alright, using connections is pretty risky against this deck, but we do need to draw action, so. Alright, and that was a very good one. He probably has a way to kill it, but let's see. He probably has a way to kill it, but we still want to just get it out there as early as we can, so I'm going to play Blood Baron and say go. Like, he can use 2 removal spells on it, but that's actually fine, because he has to use burn spells to kill it, and those are burn spells that's not bringing Chandra's Phoenix back. Chandra's Phoenix is like the Justin Timberlake of burn.
Just bringing it back. So I can use 2 spells here to take care of the Blood Baron. And I think that I just have to at this point. So, yeah. We will strike.
And shock.
And shock.
Alright, Blood Baron down.
So, I imagine there's more where that came from, but we will see. So, a land here would actually be pretty good. That's actually not bad either. I'll pass.
Alright, so draw. Alright, he has 4 cards in hand. It may seem like firing this off is bad because it does damage to us, but you know, it's probably going to save us damage in the long run by doing so. So we're actually going to Thoughtseize you. And he may blow something in response here, but we'll see.
I'm actually just going to let it resolve.
Alright, so he has a chained, 2 strikes, 1 Boros charm. So if we take Chain to the Rocks, that lets this survive. However, he does have 10 points of burn, and that drops us down to 13. So that means we're pretty much just dead to a number of burn spells he could draw. So for that reason, I think we're better off just taking see. If we take the lightning... Take the lightning strike. The difference between Boros Charm and Lightning Strike is only 1 point. I don't think that that point of damage matters. And since Boros Charm can't hit creatures, we may be better off just taking a strike here. No, I think we're better off just taking Boros Charm and saving us some points of damage. So I'm going to take Boros Charm.
Now I have to assume that he has a Desecration Demon, which is the reason that I don't just fire off one of these 3 spells. Because if I make it so that I have 2 different combinations of cards that can handle Desecration Demon, it forces you to not take the Chain to the Rocks and take one of the burn spells, and it protects me from a demon.
Yep. So he's going to be able to get back Chandra's Phoenix, but we may actually be able to race it with Pack Rat. So that's the hope. And we could have played Pack Rat early, but we knew it was just going to die. So if we waiting till now to do it means that we can actually race pretty easily with it. We'll pass.
End step, I'll strike you.
Yep. So he's going to strike us down to 10.
Get back Phoenix.
Which means he's going to try to race the rat, which I think is actually fine for us, hopefully. So
now you have 2 cards.
Yep.
The other option here could be I could also just strike the rat right now, because he knows that I have a Chain to the Rocks. So if he wants to discard one of his cards to make a rat, then I can untap and Chain to the Rocks the token and play a Phoenix and attack him. That would leave me with no cards in hand and him with 1 card in hand, but he wouldn't be able to use the connections this turn. And I think that I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to strike the rat also.
Alright, I'm going to go ahead and discard a Godless Shrine and make a rat token. You're up.
Okay. So that still leaves me with believing that he has a Desecration Demon in hand. So that is something that we're going to have to handle at some point. We're going to start off with a Scry.
Okay.
And I do like that card. Play a Chandra's Phoenix.
Okay.
I will attack you for 2.
8.
So here I can Chain to the Rocks the rat. Now I know what's on top of my deck, so I guess he could just play his demon post-combat. If he tries to race with rats, three, 6, he can make 2 rats next turn and do 6 damage to me, which would put me at 14. And then the following turn, he could make 1 rat and attack with Mutavault, which would be lethal. So yeah, I think that I have to chain the rat here.
Rat gone.
And then I'll pass the turn.
Alright, so let's see what we draw here. Okay. We'll play Temple and Scry. We'll put that on the bottom. Let's see. I don't think the difference between 8 and 7 is that large. I guess that's the difference between a Boros Charm and a Lightning Strike. He's already played 2 Lightning Strikes, so...
I played 3 strikes.
You've played 3 strikes already?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's already played 3 strikes, so he doesn't have that many spells that do 3 anymore. So being at 8 versus 7 I don't think matters that much. So I think we do use connections here. Shoots us at 7. Draw. That's pretty good. And we're going to go to our second combat and play Desecration Demon.
Yep.
It's important to go to. It's always important when you play demon to go to your second combat phase or second main phase before you play the demon, because you don't want to give them opportunities to sacrifice when they don't need to. Like, for example, if I play it in the first main phase, he can sack his Phoenix, untap, draw a burn spell me, get his Phoenix back, and hit me with it.
Yep.
He basically gets free damage that we can otherwise prevent by, playing the demon second main phase. And we'll pass.
All right. Let's see here. So at this point, I think that there isn't much that I can do at the moment. But this is still a good card for us, so I'm actually just going to pass the turn.
Okay.
So we'll go trigger, nothing, and then pass the turn.
All right. All right. Hopefully we draw something sweet. That is not very sweet. All right, we will enter our combat step and trigger Desecration Demon.
We have 2 cards.
Yes.
I will sacrifice the deer.
Okay.
Phoenix to the deer.
We're then going to activate Mutavaults and attack for 2.
I'll go to 20.
All right. We're at 7. Dropping from 7 to 6 is actually a pretty big drop, because a 4-point spell and a 2-point spell kill us then. At the same time, we don't really have anything going on, so I'm going to use connections. Go to 6. And draw a card. So I don't think there's any reason to cast this, because I'm sure he's just going to cast whatever's in his hand if it's not a land. If it was a Chain to the Rocks, he would have cast it already. So I am just going to play a land and say go.
Right. Then step, I'll do 4 damage to you and regrow my Phoenix.
All right, we're at 2. And so we can use this to kill his Phoenix. We can also gain 7 life. And I actually think we'd rather just gain 7 life, since any burn spell kills us. Whereas if we gain 7 life, that gives us a chance with connections to maybe draw some stuff to pull out of it. So I don't want to wait till his draw step, because he could just kill us in response. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and Devour Flesh myself at this point.
Sure.
And
Puts you at 9?
Yeah, I'm going to sack Demon. It's actually, yeah, it puts us at 9. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you're up. All right, we're at 7.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll go to 6. And hopefully he has a Warrior Seal or something expensive, so we'll duress. Chandra's Phoenix, awesome.
Right off the dizzy.
Jeez. All right. Activate Mutavault and attack for 2.
18.
And unfortunately, our draws have been very, very bad, so
Ouch.
Go. Two.
Niger Shock.
Yep, dead.
So much land. There's the last breath. Right on time.
All right, so we are here for sideboarding. As for myself, I'm bringing in a lot of cards. Sin Collector and Duress, his deck is mostly spells. So Sin Collector and Duress are actually very good against him. Sin Collector in particular, it strips a burn spell and is also a threat by itself that deals some damage that he probably has to spend a spell on to kill anyway.
Yep.
And like as we saw from the first two games, like it's hard for us to. We don't have a lot of ways to pressure him. Like that's why we were losing those games. It wasn't that like we couldn't deal with Chandra's Phoenix. We killed it like 3 times, but he just has like he has more removal than we have creatures, and so eventually we're gonna die.
Yeah, like you have these awesome giant creatures in like Desecration Demon and Blood Baron of Viscopa, and even though I'm having to use like 2 cards to handle Blood Baron, it still doesn't matter because I'm gonna have time to just continue to draw burn. You're just not putting enough pressure on, and having like Sin Collector and Lifebane Zombie, even though they're a little weak to Chandra, I only have 2 Chandras in the deck, and when you have those cards on curve and I don't have a Chandra, it puts me in a tough spot where I have to use removal on them, and then I won't have the removal for the Blood Barons.
Yeah, like Lifebane Zombie's not like a great card against the deck, but like we just want as many creatures that can attack as we can. Freaka's Cure is basically just an upgrade on a lot of our removal spells. The only creature, all the creatures in his deck die to it, so I'd rather have Cure than like these cards. And it's possible we actually might want to side out more removal spells too, but because like I really don't like removal spells against that deck. Like you have like 8 creatures, like I don't want to sit on a handful of removal and try to like kill your 8 creatures like 15 times and then just die to 4 Boros charms. And then what we're taking out, 2 downfalls. I left in 2 because he does have Chandra, but honestly, I would consider cutting all 4 and just hoping he doesn't draw Chandra, or that we can like strip it with a Thoughtseize or Duress, because the card is just very bad against him outside of Chandra. Ultimate Price, same thing, not very good. Devour Flesh I think is fine because devouring our own creatures can be useful. Like if he goes to Chain to Rocks, a Desecration Demon, we can just gain 6 or something like that, which is fine. And then I don't think Underworld Connections is very good against him because the match doesn't really come down to card advantage that much. It just comes down to like whether or not we can stick a threat that he doesn't have an answer for. And drawing cards at the cost of life actually gives him an ability to just ignore our creatures and kill us. Whereas otherwise, like he has to actually kill our creatures. So
yeah, like you may draw 2 cards with your Underworld Connections, but that's cutting a card off of what I have to kill you, which could even be an entire turn. Like we saw last game, you ended up using Connections 3 times, and I was able to kill you exactly with a top deck shock.
Granted, like if we had drawn good cards off those connections,
like,
that might have changed the game around, but still.
That's one of the risks you take, though. Like you're paying life to draw a card, and you have 26 lands in your deck or whatever. So it's there's still a good chance that it could just be a land and brick, which against this type of deck, I don't think the trade-off is worth it.
Yeah, now to be fair, I want to point out that I would keep in Connections if I was playing Mono Black because it's 2 extra life when you play Grey Merchant.
Yep.
But we don't have Grey Merchant, which is actually pretty unfortunate in this matchup because he's very good in this matchup. But yeah, we don't have Grey Merchant, so I don't think Connections is worth it.
I agree. As far as sideboarding for myself, I don't really like Young Pyromancer here. He just dies to everything. And I think that Assemble is actually going to be pretty good against him. The games are going to feel like they're going to go pretty long. I have a lot of scrying, so even though I only have 22 lands, getting to 5 shouldn't be that big of an issue. The only other card that I think I might consider would be Toil Trouble out of the sideboard, but I feel like it's just not going to be good enough. And I would just much rather have all the burn spells that are still in my deck.
Okay. All right, so I'm actually going to choose to be on the draw, which is
interesting.
An interesting choice maybe. I'm sure people will say that I'm wrong, but basically the way that this matchup plays out is he's going to kill every single creature we play. And
so the extra card will end up mattering?
I think the extra card ends up mattering, and the thing is like, I mean, I guess the difference between Connections and being on the draw is that when we activate Connections, we're actually giving him cards by doing damage to ourselves. But here, I think that the extra card matters because, like, we have so much hand disruption, and him starting down a card, I think, makes it more likely that our creatures survive. So, and I think the games are going to go reasonably long, so we'll see. We'll see if it works out. But
that's actually a good point. And that might make it worthwhile for me to actually side in Toil and Trouble, since that deck is going to want to be on the draw.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't think people are going to take the draw, but
no, but like when I have a choice to be on the play, then I might want it in my deck, because if I can hit you on turn 3, it's gonna be like 6 damage.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
I mean 6 damage for 3 mana is gonna put me way far ahead. All right, so this hand is a little interesting. So we have a lot of like marginal cards. But we do have these two, which will allow us to try and set up our draws. So I think that this is just going to be better than a random 6-card hand, so I'm actually going to keep.
Yeah, I'm going to keep our... I think our hand's pretty good here, so I'm going to keep as well.
Okay. So I'm going to lead off with a Temple and Scry. And I don't like this card right now, so I'm actually going to ship it.
Okay.
And then I'll pass.
All right, draw. Yeah, it's not a bad one. We're going to go ahead and duress.
Well, that's very unfortunate.
So I could...
I was hoping he would just Scry here.
Ooh, wow, okay.
But now
so,
he gets to take our Magnet.
Yeah, we could have led with a Scry land, but I like to lead with the duress. Because like we can draw... If we draw like another 1-mana spell, we can fire it off. And what we can do is we can play like... We can play this next turn with this, and then play this the following turn with this. So I think leading with a Swamp Duress here is right. And we're definitely taking Magma Jet.
Yep.
So he has 3 shocks and a Sacred Foundry in the mountain.
Yep, all these all-stars. Don't Cobalt Therapy me, please.
And you're up.
Alright, so now we're going to draw and hope to draw a Magma Jet. Spoiler alert, it was not a Magma Jet. And I think that at this point we're just going to want to try and empty our hand as fast as possible. So I'm going to play a mountain and then pass.
Alright, so there's a mountain down. Draw. That's a very good draw, actually. This is probably the best card in our deck. Not gonna lie. So we can play this, but we know he has 3 shocks in his hand, and I think we're better off waiting until later to try to like set up a situation where we can actually stick it and not just have it immediately die to shock. So I'm actually gonna Scry here. And we do want this card because it'll let us get to this, which seems pretty good against what we saw from his hand. So we're going to pass the turn.
Alrighty. So I don't think that I want to fire this off right now. Which makes me think that I possibly could have just played this last turn. Actually, yeah, I just want to fire this up now. I'll just do 4 damage to you.
16.
You gotta start somewhere, right?
Alright, so since that means we still know the contents of his hand.
Yep.
Because he played the card he drew. So.
I mean, you're gonna know the contents of my hand after I draw this Chandra's Phoenix, too.
Alright, let's see it.
Not quite. But we are going to shock ourselves here.
Okay.
And then I'll pass.
Alright, interesting he shocks himself. I wonder if he's shocking himself so he can shock us. It's,
Shocking.
Would be a bold move.
Shocking revelation.
Be a very bold move. Yeah, again, I don't want to just play this into... Although, let's see. Yeah, I don't want to just play this into a shock. So... and if we wait, we can actually use this on it to undo some stuff, too. So I actually am just going to pass the turn again. See if he wants to do some dirty damage to us here.
Okay, so my gut's telling me just to pull the trigger on these spells. Got 3, 6. But it's probably wrong. So I'm actually just not going to do anything.
Okay.
Your turn.
Alright. The old Fistful of Burn. Oh, that's an interesting draw. Let's see. We are just going to play a Desecration Demon, second main, and pass.
It will resolve.
Alright.
And step all 5 of you.
Alright, we're at 11. So he has drawn a Lightning Strike as one of the cards we didn't know. So we are in danger of just dying to just getting burned out. We know he has 2 shocks in hand, which would put us at 7, and he has 1 other card which could
I'll pass the turn.
do some serious damage to us. So we want to make sure that we're not just going to kill ourselves. So we are going to enter our combat step.
Okay.
And get in with Big D.
12.
Did you shock? Oh, you did shock yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
For no reason. We're just playing perfect.
All right. So that means that Desecration Demon is actually
relevant.
Yeah. Big D is actually on a 2-turn clock at this point. We are going to also play a Pack Rat and then pass the turn.
All right. Well, at this point, my best chance at winning this game is hitting my 7-outer here. So I'm just going to do 7 damage to you and put you at 4.
Okay. So he's tapped out. We're at 4. We may just want to fire this off right now, just to make sure that we can't possibly. Let's see. He's at 12. Yeah, I want to make sure that we just can't die. And if I wait, he can always do it in response. So I'm going to actually last breath my Pack Rat and gain 4 life.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Go to 8.
All right.
You're up.
Well, I guess we need to draw 2 of my 7-outers. I'll scry.
Scry away. I think he's on.
I'll leave it there.
Oh, it must be.
Go ahead.
Chain of the Rocks? Alright. We will draw. And. Let's see, he's at 12. We're at 8. I don't think there's any way he can kill us with 1 card. So. I guess even if there is, we can play around it. A combat step will get him for 6. Which is 6. We're going to shock ourselves down to 6. And I'm going to go ahead and double rat. You're up.
All right. Well, I am just dead then.
Okay.
I can chain here.
Yeah.
I'm dead to double.
Yeah, chain had to be the only card that he would keep because otherwise he's just dead. So.
All right, we are back for game 4.
Yep.
And I am on the play this game, and I swapped the Assemble the Legions for the Toil Troubles. I feel like even against this deck, Assemble is just too slow, and just having the chance of being able to get 6 or 5 damage out of a Toil Trouble on turn 3, just from the way the games are playing, I feel like it's going to put me way far ahead.
I also made 1 sideboard change. I added the 4th Devour Flesh back in and cut a Lifebane zombie. As we've seen from the game so far, using my own removal spells and my own creatures to gain life has actually been pretty instrumental. So I think I just want as many of those effects as I can have.
Every part of that buffalo.
Yep.
All right, so this hand is fairly interesting. It's not super fast, but we do have some very good cards against him. And I think that I am actually just going to keep this hand.
All right, our hand is fine. It's a little land heavy, but the rest of the cards in our hand are good, so we're going to keep it.
All right, we're going to start out with this Scryland.
Okay.
And let's see here. I think that we might want to keep this. I really want to hit 1 more land. And I want to hit it on curve. So I actually think I'm just going to ship this to the bottom. Could be wrong, but I will live by my decisions.
All right, so drawing this actually changes our line of play. Originally, I was just going to play this, but I like leading this over this because we don't actually know exactly what we want yet, and it fits our curve with this card. But since we drew this, I actually want to lead with this first now, so that we can go like this on turn 1, and then this on turn 1 alongside of this on turn 2. So we're gonna go ahead and Thoughtseize you. Puts us down to 18. All right, so there are 2 strikes, 1 chains.
It's not the proper number of chains.
Yeah, you're missing a chain. 1 skull crack, temple, and a toil trouble. All right, well, let's see. Toil trouble is basically going to be 5 damage to us, which is a lot. I think we're best taking that. Yep, I think we're best taking the Toil trouble, since it's basically just deal 5.
That was Assemble the Legion. Did you take Assemble the Legion?
Nope. Go.
Didn't think so. All right, so now we draw for our turn. And we will scry.
Okay.
And I do think we actually want to keep this on top. And then I'll pass.
All right, we draw. That's actually a pretty solid draw. So he has a temple, which he played. He has a skull crack, a chain to the rocks, and 2 lightning strikes. I think we're gonna just play a pack rat here. Say go.
I luckily drew a shock.
And that's unfortunate. All right, that makes our play bad, but we didn't know he drew the shock, so.
All right, we'll draw. We knew it was there, and we'll play a temple.
Okay.
And scry. And I think that I don't think that we want this card, so I'm going to ship it. And I'll pass.
All right. Draw. Yeah, it's kind of a bad one. We're going to go ahead and scry before we do anything else so that we know what we're looking for. Basically, we know what we're going to be. We know every card in his hand already. This will tell us what we're looking at before we fire this off so that it gives us a better understanding of what we want to take. So we will scry, and we will ship that to the bottom. We do not need any of those. And then we're going to Thoughtseize. So drop us to 16.
There's just no point in me firing off any of these spells.
So he has 9 points of burn in his hand, which would drop us to 9. Now we could take...
Well, 9 points would take you to 7 right
To
now.
7. Okay, 7, sorry. Yeah, he would drop us to 7 with 9 points, which is actually okay because we have a pretty solid clock with this. So I'm actually going to take the Chain to the Rocks, and that forces him to use 6 points of burn on our Desecration Demon if he wants to kill it, unless he has another Chain to the Rocks. And he also doesn't, well, he doesn't have a mountain, but I think it's likely that he draws a mountain at some point, so I don't want to bank on that. So yeah, we're going to take Chain to the Rocks here. And hopefully we don't die before Desecration Demon does his thing. Pass the turn.
Now, I want to use my mana here pretty efficiently, and because he knows that I have the Skull Crack, there's no way that he's going to walk into it, so I'm actually just going to Skull Crack you instead.
Alright, just got cracked.
And I'm going to draw a Chandra's Phoenix. Rats, not a Chandra's Phoenix. We will scry, though.
Alright.
And this one actually isn't all that bad. So I think that I want to keep this on top, actually. And then I will pass the turn.
Alright. And we will draw. That's okay. That will actually serve as a nice threat post-demon if he chooses to double strike the demon. So second main will play a demon. And pass off to you.
So I can just untap and kill his demon here. But I think that I would be better off trying to... And you have 3 cards?
Yes.
3, 6, 9 puts you at 4. So if there's a Boros charm underneath there, I'm fine. I doubt that there is. I think that I just want to hold on to these 2 strikes and see what I can draw into. All right, so we'll untap. I'm going to draw. I'm going to sign a blood myself.
Okay, so you dropped to 18.
Yep. And we'll draw 2 cards. I think here that I actually just want to do this in Scry. And we'll ship that guy to the bottom. And then I'll pass.
So as a guy, that's what you're going to draw. Ship that guy. All right.
Yeah.
No?
Sacred
No
Foundry
one?
is a male.
Okay. Interesting to note. Let's see here. I'll enter combat.
Yep.
And bring in the D. So
12.
he drops to 12. Yeah, now I just want to keep pressure up, so we're going to play a Lifebane Zombie. Oh, man. Get bricked, so... Alright, he has 2 strikes and a mountain.
Yep.
And I am going to play a Mutavault and pass the turn.
So a Chain to the Rocks here would be pretty good. Not going to lie.
You can not draw one. That'd be pretty sweet.
That one's not bad.
So they rock
Play a
solid draw.
land. And then I'll just pass the turn.
Okay. Draw. Pretty much the old do nothings on that draw step. We're just going to activate Mutavault, enter combat.
Okay.
Team.
So it's for 11.
Yep.
I'll go to 1.
Alright, so he is looking to just kill us here. And we'll pass the turn.
Alright, well, I have a lot of outs here. As long as he doesn't have a Devour Flesh. I'm actually dead if he has a Devour Flesh. But I will hit you for 4.
Alright, so 9, and you go to...
5.
5.
And then 3 you to 6.
6. Okay.
So basically any non-shock burn spell. And I'll strike you.
Alright, we're at 3.
Well, I guess I might as well go for it now. I'll Boros Charm you.
I will Freakus Cure my Desecration Demon.
Oh my god. Yep.
Alright, we are back for the old 5th and deciding game.
Yep. I'll be on the play again, and we'll see if my good cards can get Thoughtseized on turn 1 yet again.
Be fine with it.
Alright, so this hand is actually pretty interesting. I think it's fairly good, and I am going to keep it. Have to decide what my first land play is going to be.
This hand is pretty bad. It's Thoughtseize, Devour Flesh, and 4 land, or 2 Devour Flesh and 4 lands, but we don't even have any white sources, so like we still have to draw a white source to cast any of our white cards, and we actually just have no action whatsoever. So I think this is a pretty bad hand, and I don't think it. I think we'd lose if we kept it. So
Thoughtseize, 2 Devour Flesh and 4 lands.
yeah, like Devour Flesh is like good in some situations against you, but it's pretty situational as a whole. Like,
yeah, like
we want threats, not
it's you're usually going to use it to gain life.
Yeah,
Let's be honest.
Yeah. All right, best 6 we've ever seen, right here. Well, actually, this is looking pretty solid so far. I mean, this isn't great. This is pretty bad, to be honest, but uh, it's better than the 7 that we had, so, yep, keep
All
it.
right. Well, I am actually just going to lead with this temple,
Okay.
and we're going to scry. And I think that we actually are going to ship this one to the bottom.
Okay.
So we might just, people might think that we want to keep it so that we can cast this spell, but we do have 3 more draws to try and hit something, and I would just much rather not have that land.
Okay.
So I'll pass.
All right. So the natural instinct is to lead with the temple here, but we actually don't know what we want to draw yet. And it's going to come down to what our next draw step is. Like, if our next draw step is a land, then we don't want to draw any more land. We don't want to draw another land. So we would scry a land at the bottom with the temple. But if our next draw step is a non-land, then we would want to keep a land on top with the temple. So for that reason, we're actually just going to lead with the Godless Shrine and give ourselves another draw before we decide on the scry for temple. You're up.
That's actually a really good point, and a lot of people don't realize that they just like cash in their scry lands right off the bat because it always comes into play tap, so you want to play it early. But depending on the texture of your hand, like most of the time it's not even right. You don't know what you want to scry.
Yeah.
So we draw for our turn, and boy was that a good one.
That's pretty lucky.
So we're gonna play a mountain, and then I'll pass the turn.
All right. Draw. All right. Well, so yeah, like for example, now that we've drawn this, it's pretty clear that we want to draw lands. So we're gonna scry, and while this card is good, we are gonna put it on the bottom because we do want to draw lands. So we'll say go.
All right, well I'm gonna dome you for 4 on end step.
I have a feeling we're just actually gonna die before we cast anything this game, but I guess we'll find out.
All right, well that was actually a pretty good draw. We're gonna shock ourselves.
We're gonna get Chandra's Phoenix Tear.
No, we're actually just going to do 6 damage to you.
All right, we're just gonna be at 10.
And then I'll pass.
Well, we'll scry again, and I think I honestly think we're just going to be dead before we even get to this point, so I'm just gonna put it on the bottom. Go.
All right, so that is actually a pretty good card. However, so I could play this and try and get in damage, but that actually just turns on cards like Freaka's Cure, and I don't think it's worth it at this point. I think I'm better off just sitting on these. So I'm actually just going to pass the turn.
All right, draw. That's actually a good draw, but we're not going to use it yet. We're actually just going to play a Desecration Demon and say go. And he's probably going to burn us here.
And stuff, I'm going to charm you again.
All right, 6.
And can we draw a shock? Not a shock, but almost as good.
And we're at 4.
Go ahead.
We really needed him to not have a Chain to the Rocks there, but he unfortunately did. All right, well, we're going to duress him. I mean, we have to take Boros Charm since it's just lethal, so. And we will scry with Temple.
The old triple Boros Charm draw.
And Toil Trouble, too. So if he didn't have Chain to the Rocks, I actually think we win this game, but he does, so we probably don't win. Yeah, I don't see what this card does for us, so we have to ship it, unfortunately. Say go.
All right, so we're going to attack.
Devour Flush.
I'll sacrifice.
All right.
Go to 20. We will play a land. We're going to Chandra.
Yep.
Shoot you for 1 and regrow the Phoenix.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm not technically dead yet.
I guess you could wait on the Devour Flash.
Yeah. I guess I theoretically have outs, but I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, just like literal any non-land card kills you here, though.
Or Chandra in 2 turns. So.
Yeah.
You also get the Phoenix back, so I don't see an out. But
yeah, that's true. I just play the Phoenix and attack. Yeah. 22. 1U.
Yep. Go to 2.
Get back Phoenix. Play a land. I think I can just cast the Phoenix too.
Okay.
It's your turn.
Go.
Resolves.
All right, you got it. Yep. All right, we're here for the conclusion of the Orzhov Control versus Boros Burn matchup. So,
name sounds fitting for the deck after playing it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
The deck was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I am very unhappy with the majority of the sideboard. However, I think that the main deck was very good, and Toil and Trouble ended up doing exactly what I thought it was going to do, and definitely is worth having in the sideboard.
I've actually played against that deck a lot on Magic Online, and a number of people are just main decking it. So
I could see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it might just be better than Pyromancer, to be honest. Just
yeah, I mean,
22 lands, a bunch of scry lands, just 6 damage for 3 mana. It's very good.
Yeah, the card's very good. I mean, the Orzhov deck seems fine. Like it's a little weird though, because like this is not like a standard or like very traditional matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a lot of the cards we didn't really get to see like their full potential. Like, Desecration Demon was like something I was sacking to gain 6 life. Like, it wasn't like, or vice versa. It was like last breathing my own pack rat. It's kind of not non-traditional lines of play.
But that's what's very interesting about those cards is they give you those options.
Yeah,
so
they do.
You're not just stuck with this Doomblade in your hand that can only kill a creature. You have these cards that are removal against these difficult creatures to handle, but also can just cash in to gain a bunch of life when you play against some maniac playing mono red burn.
Yep. Some maniac like Stevie with his red beard, just
perfect.
Trying to burn everything.
Perfect.
Yep.
So I definitely really like the deck. I think that it's something that people have to be aware of. There's so many cards in the deck that deal 4 damage that it can do a lot of damage to you fairly quickly. Like you notice there, a lot of times when you were scrying, you're like, well, I think I'm just going to be dead before I can even cast this spell, and they're just like 5 mana spells, which is pretty crazy. Yeah,
like my hand in the third game was fine if you didn't just have like 30 points of burn in your hand. So, like, if I had the opportunity I saw 3 Desecration Demons that game. I scryed 2 to the bottom, and I had 2 Blood Barons. One in my opening hand. One was like my first draw of the game. So yeah, there was like a number of, if you didn't just have like if you had Shocks and Magma Jets, I probably would have been able to pull that game out. But since you had like 6 you had 3 Boros Charms and 2 Toil Troubles, I pretty much just took a beating. So
I mean, those cards do a lot of damage.
They do. Yeah, they do a lot of damage.
So, where do you think these 2 decks sit in like the standard meta? So, like that Orzhov deck just won the Grand Prix in Dallas.
Yep.
This one just top 8'd. We saw that there were no mono blue devotion decks in the top 16 in Dallas. Although to be fair, I don't think Sam Black made it out there, so that probably skews the data a little bit.
Yeah.
But where do you think these decks sit in the grand scheme of things, where there's just like these devotion decks at the top, a few aggressive decks, and now we have these 2 new decks that aren't taking advantage of devotion, but they're just doing something completely unique. They're attacking the format from a little different angle.
I think they both have a place. I don't actually know how like good they'll be going long. Like a lot of times decks like this spring up that will win a tournament and then you just don't, like 2 weeks later they're just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the metagame shifted and they're kind of like a metagame deck. So I don't actually know. Like for example, like I think Blood Baron is a metagame card. I know a lot of people really love that card a lot, but I don't actually think it's a very good card. Like I think Blood Baron is like a bad Magic card, and the reason it's good right now is because the metagame is so skewed towards like black removal spells.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also the mono white like aggressive deck that's pretty popular. So Like it's basically just because of how skewed the format is that makes Blood Baron a good card. Whereas Grey Merchant's pretty universally good if you can provide the devotion. So like something like this Orzhov deck, if people start playing like mono blue decks, or if people go back to like the green red decks, Blood Baron's just awful, and
Yeah.
having Grey Merchant would just be a lot better. So like there's definitely a place for this deck in the metagame right now, but if it shifts, I don't think this deck like sticks around. As for the burn deck, I'm not sure. I actually think
Yeah, it's just
it's
a
hard
bunch
to
of
say.
burn spells.
Yeah,
Like,
it's hard. It's hard to say. Like it's hard to say. I think actually that mono black's actually good against that deck, which I don't know. Maybe the results don't say otherwise. But like I know playing mono black against it on Magic Online, I was winning a lot. So I think mono black's pretty good against that deck. But I think that deck's probably pretty good against almost everything else. Don't know how it matches up against mono blue though. But
yeah, I mean, and I also feel against mono black, you still have a chance because you have Skullcracks in your main deck.
yeah, you
So
do.
like if you ever get to Skullcrack a Grey Merchant activation, you're probably just going to kill them on the very next turn. So it's like you still have a chance to win. So it's not like you just can't beat the deck. I'm not sure how it does against blue, and I mean, I'm definitely going to be playing it a little bit this week before the Invitational to see if it can beat blue. I mean, because if it can beat blue and is good against everything else, and even to a small dog against black, it might be a decent deck for the Invitational. A lot of people won't be expecting it. Most of the the players that are going to be playing in these like invite only type tournaments usually aren't going to be respecting these red burn decks, and
No, yeah.
sometimes you just get them.
Yeah, like I think like for the Invitational, like I don't actually know if mono black's going to be that popular. I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of players playing blue and like various control decks. Those are the kinds of decks that a lot of the players in the Invitational like to gravitate towards because they offer a lot of options. Like the blue deck, there's a ton of options with that deck. Same thing with Esper or Blue White Control. They both have a lot of options, and people really love those decks a lot. And this deck just kind of beats up on them. Like Skullcrack, your Sphinx's Revelation, Toil Trouble You. There's just a lot of there's a lot of burn there. And like even if you play that deck against a control deck, like you don't have to kill creatures, so you can just throw it all at them.
Yeah, it's not very difficult to put together 20 points of damage.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that I'm interested in looking into. For anybody that's watching, if you have any experience with the deck and want to chime in on the comments on how it does match up against the Mono Blue Devotion deck, that's definitely something we'd be interested in, as well as your thoughts on Young Pyromancer, if it's worth being in the deck or not. After playing with it, I don't think it is. I honestly think I would just rather have it be Toil Trouble in the main deck.
Yeah, another option too is Anger the Gods, actually. I've seen some lists with Anger main. I mean, it does exile your Chandra's Phoenix, but you can like play around your own cards.
Yeah, for sure.
And Anger is very good against mono black and mono blue. So that's definitely a consideration as well.
Anger is very good against mono blue.
Mizium Mortars is another card that's definitely a consideration too. So I've seen lists with both of those cards. Like Mortars kills Blood Baron too, which is pretty big. So
Yep.
I think there's a lot of customization you can do with that deck, and I think it's pretty powerful. So I would definitely look at it. As for the Orzhov deck, I'm not sure how much you can really customize. Actually, the list is pretty tight.
It looks very well built.
Yeah, it was very well built. Like it won the GP, and it's a lot of times like a deck will win a GP, and you'll be like, how did that deck possibly win? It just looks
kind of like that deck that was in Louisville. Like I don't understand how that deck won.
pretty lucky, honestly. But
come on.
yeah, but this deck actually looks pretty good. So I think this would be a fine choice too.
Do you think that there's a spot in this deck for Night Veil Spectre along everything else?
I like Night Veil Spectre a lot, and I actually think that there probably is a spot for it because like Spectre is very good against mono black and mono blue, and it's respectable against like the control decks too. So I definitely think that there is a spot for Night Veil Spectre. Even if you don't want it main deck, like definitely sideboard. And like the mana base for this deck is pretty much the same as like the mono black mana base, except you have one basic planes, which could just become an Orzhov Guildgate. Just saying, and then you could cast Spectre just as easily as mono black does.
Do you think maybe Spectre main and moving Connections to the board would be something somebody could look at? Or is Connections just too good to not start?
I don't think I can advocate moving Connections to the board. Just saying, it's just so good. Even in matchups where it shouldn't be good, sometimes it still is. Like if you just go Thoughtseize into removal spell into Connections, even against like the mono white deck, it's still fine.
Yeah, you can just outpace their creatures.
Yeah, so like it's not it's not terrible even in some matchups.
Plus, as we saw, you don't need Grey Merchant to gain chunks of life at a time.
Yeah, you can always Devour Flesh your Desecration Demon.
It happens. It did, and it will continue to happen. So for anybody that is going to the Invitational this weekend, or to any of the hundreds of IQs, I don't know if we have that many IQs, but I'm sure there's a lot of IQs across the country. Would you advocate the Orzhov deck for somebody that is, a little keen on the Orzhov Guildgate style of play from last season?
Yeah, definitely. This definitely feels like the kind of like there's a lot of players out there who are kind of like myself that just really love like Sand Collector type cards, and I think this deck's probably like right up your alley if you're that kind of player. So yeah, I definitely recommend playing it. It seems powerful, and I think those kinds of cards are fun. So there's that too.
Perfect. Well, I know that you and I are both going to be in Vegas for the Invitational this weekend.
Yep.
So anybody that wants to stop by and say hi to us, please feel free to do so. We enjoy talking with people that enjoy our content. If you have any suggestions or any comments that you don't want to put on the internet but want to come say it to us, please feel free to come up and say hi. We're definitely looking forward to meeting anybody that wants to come talk to us.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, guys, thanks for stopping by and watching. Let us know what you thought in the comments. If you have any suggestions, if you want to see any particular matchups moving forward, just let us know. We read everything, for better or for worse. And thanks for coming by this week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.